Let me tell you something. I learned early your life doesn't rise to the level of your goals. It rises or falls to the level of your circle. You show me your 5 closest friends, I'll show you your future. Not because of fate or chance, but because association is a powerful sculptor of your mindset. You don't catch wealth like a cold. You absorb it through conversation, through proximity, through energy. Now, why is this so powerful? Because the human mind is like soft, wax malleable, shapeable, and every time you're in a room, that room shapes you. If you sit long enough with people who make excuses, who gossip, who chase comfort, you'll begin to shrink your dreams just to fit in. But spend time with those who think big, invest wisely, speak in vision, and you'll start to rise just to keep up. See, poverty isn't just a bank balance, it's often a belief system passed down in stories, complaints, and habits. But wealth? That too is a mindset, passed through exposure, example, and expectation. So if you want to transform your life, don't just change your strategy, change your circle. Because where you sit determines what you see, and what you see determines who you become. When I started on my journey, one of the first principles I learned was this: you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That idea changed everything for me. Not just who I listened to, but who I allowed into my hours. Because the truth is, success is not just something you chase, it's something you attract by who you become. And who you become is shaped day by who you're around. So if you're surrounded by people who blame, complain, and coast, guess what happens to you? You slowly begin to mirror that mindset, sometimes without even noticing. So I say audit your circle, pull out a notebook, and write down the 5 people you talk to the most. Now ask yourself, do they inspire you? Do they challenge you? Do they think in solutions or problems? Are they pushing you to rise, pulling you to settle? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, that's good. That's the beginning of change. The key is not to cut people off in anger, but to level up your associations with intention. Start adding people to your life who've already built what you're trying to build. Entrepreneurs, thinkers, people of character, those who live with vision and discipline. I remember when I first met someone who was financially not flashy, not boastful, just focused. We met once a month over lunch. I listened more than I spoke. I learned how he saw money, how he made decisions, how he handled setbacks. Those conversations were worth more than a college course, because it wasn't just information, it was transformation. Wisdom is caught more than it's taught. That's the power of proximity. And here's the strategy. Don't wait for those people to come to you. Reach out, schedule lunches, join a mastermind, message that entrepreneur, ask a question, offer value. People who are further along aren't always looking for praise. They're looking to pass on what they've learned to those who respect the process. And once you start spending time with the right people, something shifts. Your standards rise, your language changes, you start making decisions with a longer horizon. You begin to think more in terms of growth and less in terms of lack. That shift, that new mental environment, will do more for your future than any lottery ticket ever could. You don't rise by accident. You rise by association. When I first sat at a table with people who had built wealth, not inherited it, but built it, I was struck by something unexpected. They didn't spend their time talking about their watches, their cars, or their vacations. That's what I thought wealth would sound like. But no, what I heard was something different, something deeper. They weren't bragging about what they could buy, they were discussing what they could create. And that moment taught me a powerful lesson. Wealthy people don't just talk about money, they talk about value. The poor mindset often chases money as a symbol, something to prove worth, to impress, to comfort. But the wealthy mindset sees money as a tool servant, not a master. And more importantly, it's not the dollars that fascinate the wealthy, it's what the dollars represent: time, leverage, growth, freedom. That's the real wealth. So when you enter conversations with people who have trained their minds to think richly, the vocabulary changes. They talk about building, serving, solving. The question is no longer, how can I make more money? But how can I create more value for more people? because they know money flows where value is delivered. Now, that doesn't mean they ignore finances. Quite the opposite. They understand numbers, they study margins, they watch returns, but the numbers are rooted in purpose. I remember sitting with a businessman who ran a simple operation, nothing glamorous, but he knew exactly how his service helped small business owners save time and stress. His revenue reflected the value he created. He didn't chase flash, he chased useful. That's the secret. The wealthy don't obsess over how much they have, they focus on how much they contribute. That's the path to abundance. That's what creates sustainability. And when you spend time with these kinds of thinkers, your own questions begin to change. You stop asking, quote, what should I buy next? And start asking, what can I build that lasts? You stop seeking applause and start seeking alignment with your skills, your calling, your market. It's no longer about showing off, it's about showing up. And in that space, you become magnetic to opportunity. People want to work with those who think in value, not vanity. So if you want wealth, shift your conversation. Talk less about spending. Talk more about solving. Don't just follow the money. Follow the value. When the morning starts, so does your mind. And how you greet the morning often decides how the world greets you. See, most people wake up and immediately step into reaction mode, scrolling through news, checking messages, rushing through routines. And before they've even taken a deep breath, their entire day is being dictated by someone else's agenda. But I've found that the wealthy, the productive, the fulfilled, they do something very different. They begin their day with intention, not reaction. They don't stumble into the day, they design it. They carve out time before the noise begins, before the world starts making demands. The first 30 minutes of the day, that's your time to lead your own mind, to take back control from chaos, to declare, this day belongs to me. Because if you don't lead your day will lead you, and usually not to where you want to go. Now, I'm not talking about complicated rituals or rigid routines. I'm talking about presence. I'm talking about clarity. I used to start my mornings just like everybody else, coffee in one hand, anxiety in the other. But then I made a shift. I started reviewing my goals before I reviewed the headlines. I wrote down the top 3 priorities I needed to accomplish that day. I visualized myself completing them with excellence. And what happened? My distractions didn't disappear, but they lost their power over me. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was responding with purpose. Wealthy people know this. Direction creates momentum. And momentum, repeated daily, creates results. So when you wake up, instead of scrolling, start scripting. Write out your mission for the day. Even 5 minutes of journaling your focus can shape the next 16 hours of productivity. Don't let the first voices you hear be from the outside world. Let them be from within, from the part of you that remembers where you're going and why. And here's the beautiful thing, intention compounds. When you start your day with discipline, that mindset follows you into meetings, into conversations, into decisions. You're more likely to say no to distractions, more likely to say yes to growth. Because you're no longer living by accident, you're living by design. So before the sun rises too high, give those early minutes to yourself. Set your compass. Own your time. Let your day begin by following your plan at someone else's. One of the greatest illusions in life is that we think we're short on time. But the truth is, we're not short, we're just sloppy. And I say that not to criticize, but to wake us up. Because the moment I started treating time the way I treated money, everything changed. You wouldn't go a whole week spending cash without checking your bank account. And yet, many people go month after month spending hours with no clue where they went. The successful, though they create a time budget the same way they'd create a financial one. I remember years ago, I started tracking my hours not to become robotic, but to become responsible. I took a small notebook and wrote down in half-hour increments what I was doing. At the end of the week, I didn't need a coach, I needed honesty. I saw the leaks, hours lost to meaningless conversations, distractions disguised as productivity, quick tasks that drained creative energy. Just like overspending, I was overcommitting to the wrong thing. So I began categorizing. Just like a budget has investment expenses and luxuries, your time has categories too. First is investment time. This is the goal. Reading books, listening to mentors, building your skills, creating something that compounds in value. Every hour here is like putting money in a portfolio that pays dividends for life. Next is maintenance. These are the things you have to do. Grocery shopping, emails, laundry, life's admin tasks. You don't eliminate them, but you keep them efficient. Don't let maintenance steal from investment. Then there's waste. And this is where most people go broke mentally, emotionally, and financially. Scrolling endlessly, gossip, overconsumption of entertainment. The moment I saw how much of my time was spent on waste, I understood why my results weren't where I wanted them to be. So I didn't shame myself, I reallocated. I began protecting my investment hours like gold. I blocked off my mornings for focused work, and I moved my learning time to lunch breaks. I said no more often to things that didn't move the needle. The results didn't show in a day, but over weeks and months, my life began to shift because my schedule was aligned with my goals. So if you want your life to change, don't start with your dreams, start with your calendar, audit your hours, redirect the waste, maximize the investment. Because just like money, if you manage time well, it will multiply everything you value. It's not that entertainment is wrong. It's that it's been given a promotion it didn't earn. The average person spends hours escaping their own life, while the wealthy spend hours designing it. And the difference isn't intelligence or background, it's priorities. The wealthy understand that growth must come before gratification. And if you truly want to change your life, you must learn to make growth time sacred. I remember when I was first starting out, I didn't have much. No mansion, no luxury car, just a small apartment and a hunger to grow. But what I did have was time. And like most people, I was tempted to spend that time easing the stress of the day. Little television here, a little distraction there. But I realized one day that those hours of relief were costing me my future. So I made a trade. I swapped 30 minutes of television for 30 minutes of transformation. I started reading, not just anything, but books that stretched me. Financial wisdom, philosophy, human behavior. I listened to audio programs while driving. I replaced noise with nourishment. And it didn't take long before my thoughts began to shift. The world started to look different, not because the world had changed, but because I had changed. Most people will tell you they don't have time. But watch what they do at night. Scroll through social media, binge another series, complain about being tired, then waste the energy they do have. And I don't say that with judgment, I say it with urgency. Because every night you invest in your future puts you a step ahead of someone who's sleeping on theirs. Make growth a non-negotiable, even if it's just an hour a day. That's 365 hours a year. That's 9 full-time work weeks dedicated to learning, becoming, expanding. Imagine what would happen if you gave that gift to yourself, not just for 1 year, but for 5. That's how empires are built for, by hour, page by page, lesson by lesson. So start small, but start now. Choose one book, one podcast, one idea worth pondering. Give your mind the same discipline you give your finances. Because the wealthiest people I know aren't just rich in money, they're rich in wisdom. And wisdom is earned in the hours the world wastes. It's not just how much time you have, it's how you use the time you didn't even know you had. The wealthy have a way of reclaiming what others waste. They turn dead time into productive time. That's one of the most underestimated habits of high achievers. They're constantly repurposing the in-between moments. While others scroll, zone out, or complain about traffic, the wealthy are listening, learning, reflecting, and growing. They treat time like capital. Every minute has value. I remember those early days when I was on the road a lot, driving from one speaking engagement to the next, sometimes hours at a stretch. And I'll admit, at first I just listened to the radio, letting the time pass. But one day I realized something. I was letting golden hours slip through my fingers, so I made a decision. I turned my car into a classroom. I started listening to audio lessons, business training, biographies, philosophy, anything that expanded me. Before long, those hours became some of my most valuable learning time. The road didn't change, but my thinking did. It became clear to me that it wasn't about having more time, it was about not wasting what I already had. Most people lose 30 minutes a day just waiting in line, waiting for someone, waiting for the day to start. But those moments are opportunities in disguise. Carry a notebook. Carry a goal. Carry a question in your mind worth thinking through. Let waiting time become thinking time. Some of my best ideas didn't come while sitting in a meeting. They came while standing in line or walking through an airport. Why? Because I trained myself to stay present, to be intentional, to use even the cracks of my day with purpose. It's not multitasking, it's intentional layering. Feeding your mind while your body is in motion. That's how the wealthy get ahead without rushing. They reclaim lost minutes that others ignore. Now, I understand we all get tired. We all want to unplug. But I'm not saying fill every second with activity. I'm saying choose to use the moments that were already going to happen. Your commute, your errands, your downtime, it's already scheduled. You might as well turn it into something that builds you instead of something that numbs you. The difference between the broke and the wealthy isn't time eats awareness. And when you learn to reclaim your dead time, you stop living on the clock and start living on purpose. Most people wake up on Monday morning already behind. Not because they lack time or talent, but because they lack a plan. The wealthy don't let the week happen to them, they architect it. They zoom out before they zoom in. And that starts with one simple habit, weekly planning. I used to think success was about how well you managed each day. But I discovered something more powerful. Those who win consistently don't just think daily, they think weekly. You see, the poor mindset is reactive. It scrambles every morning, trying to remember what's urgent. The rich mindset is intentional. It sets priorities in advance and uses each day as a step toward the bigger picture. That's why Sunday evenings became sacred time for me. 30 minutes with a journal, a calendar, and a quiet mind. I'd ask myself, what do I want to accomplish this week that moves me closer to my long-term vision? Not just tasks, but outcomes. Not just chores, but growth. When you look at the whole week before it starts, you gain clarity. You spot bottlenecks, you find opportunities, you realign your time with your values. One man drifts into the week and gets swept up in busyness. Another designs his week and uses time as a tool. Which one ends wealthier? I remember mentoring a young man who complained, "I'm always busy, but I'm not moving forward." I asked him, "Show me your weekly plan." He didn't have one. So we sat down and I taught him the habit. One notebook, one calendar, one planning session on Sunday. The next month, his performance transformed. He said, "It's like I finally became the CEO of my own time." That's what happens when you take charge of your week. You stop chasing fires and start chasing vision. You stop living for urgency and start living with intention. The wealthy don't just fill time, they align time. Their daily actions are small deposits into weekly accounts. Each week compounds into results. That's the secret most never see. Success isn't in the intensity of one day. It's in the rhythm of planned weeks, executed with focus. So don't just ask, what am I doing today? Ask, what is this week for? Take 30 minutes to map it. Your calendar becomes your compass. And in a world full of noise, clarity becomes your greatest asset. When I started to grow financially, one of the first lessons I learned was this. You only have so much mental energy in a day. And if you spend all that energy on the small, routine decisions, what to eat, when to pay the bills, which errands to run, you'll have nothing left for the big, strategic choices that actually move your life forward. That's why successful people automate the routine. Not because they're lazy, but because they value their mind for more than maintenance. They use it to build, I used to wake up and spend the first hour of my day tangled in minor decisions. And I'd end the day wondering why I felt so drained, even though nothing significant got done. Then I started building systems. Bills on autopay, savings on auto transfer, groceries scheduled, clothes simplified, meals prepped on Sundays. All of a sudden, I had space not just in my schedule, but in my mind. That's when the real magic happened. My thinking got clearer. My goals became sharper. I stopped reacting to life and started directing it. Let me tell you, wealthy people don't spend time chasing reminders. They create systems once and let those systems run. They don't use willpower for routine. They reserve it for growth. The more decisions you can remove from your daily load, the more power you have to create, to build, to lead. And it's not about being robotic, it's about being deliberate. Imagine what would happen if you spent 80% of your day on work that grows your future instead of tasks that just maintain your present. I mentored a man once who was overwhelmed, burning out from trying to do everything manually. I told him, "You're operating like a one-man band. It's time to think like a conductor." So we looked at his week. We automated his finances. We delegated his errands. He freed up 10 hours a week. 10 hours to think, build, read, connect. A month later, his business had new clients. His mind was calmer. He said, "I didn't just reclaim my time, I reclaimed my creativity." That's what happens when you simplify the small and structure the rest. You stop fighting fires and start lighting your own. Automation isn't just a productivity hack, it's a wealth principle. Because every minute you don't spend on maintenance, you can invest in movement. And the one who moves forward quietly, intentionally, consistently is the one who eventually leads. One of the greatest habits I ever formed was the discipline of reflection. And not once a year during some resolution frenzy, but every single week. You see, time will pass whether you learn from it or not. But wealthy people, successful people make time work for them by reviewing it, understanding it, and adjusting based on what it reveals. That's how they turn hours into wisdom, effort into efficiency, and mistakes into mastery. Every Friday evening or Sunday night, I sit down quietly, no noise, no distractions. I open up my notebook and I ask a few simple, powerful questions. What did I accomplish this week? What moved me forward? What did I waste time on? And most importantly, what can I do differently next week to be just 1% better? That small ritual became one of the most valuable practices in my life. Because without reflection, you'll keep running in circles, confusing motion with progress. I remember a time early in my career when I was busy all week, but broke by the weekend. I was exhausted, but nothing had really moved. That week, during reflection, it hit me. I had spent hours reacting, responding to every call, email, and request, but 0 hours building. I wasn't investing time in revenue-producing activities. I changed that the following week, and by the end of the month, my results had doubled. Not because I worked harder, but because I worked wiser. Reflection brings clarity. It tells you what to stop, what to keep, and what to improve. It turns your calendar from a graveyard of appointments into a map for growth. I once mentored a man who was always spinning. He'd try everything but finish nothing. I told him, until you know where your time went, you won't know where your life is going. I helped him build a weekly review habit. 3 months later, he said it changed everything. His energy, his priorities, his income. Because for the first time, he saw his pattern sand. When you see your patterns, you can change your path. Wealth isn't just built in the doing, it's built in the learning. And learning requires pause. So take the pause, sit still, look back, ask the hard questions. Because those quiet answers are what will guide your next breakthrough. Let me leave you with this. Your time is your life in disguise. Every hour you spend, whether in growth or in waste ice, a seed, and the harvest will either be regret or reward. The wealthy aren't made by luck or accident. They're shaped by intention, by strategy, by the invisible decisions they make when no one is watching. They use their time with precision, they guard their minds like a fortress, and they build circles that elevate, not drain. So I want to challenge you, not next year, not next month, this week. Audit your time. Reflect on your habits. Change your circle if it no longer serves your vision. If you've been starting your day in chaos, take back your mornings. If your evenings are filled with distraction, make them moments of reflection and learning. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfect conditions. The seeds of wealth are sown in the quiet choices no one sees. Start small, but start smart. Trade one television show for one chapter of a book. Replace gossip with a growth conversation. Take a walk with an idea that stretches you. Because if you change how you spend your time, you will change your results, and if you change your results, you will change your life. You don't need more hours. You need more direction.